Well, I'm a very proud New Zealander and I love our country and I love what it offers. But when England joined the EEC, we got kicked out. So we lost that partnership and then we had to develop new markets. We're better at many things in Australia. The government gets involved through biosecurity and MPI. It's a very controlled space. Yeah.
Today it's a long trip for the SN podcast as we go down and under and beyond to New Zealand, a land of endless, unspoiled nature, possibly because it's too far away from everything. But there is life there. Around 29 million sheep, which is about 6 for every person. I'll let you do the maths for that one. Famous for rugby, wine, kiwis, Maori hackers, and of course, Stella International. As we bear the heat in the Northern Hemisphere summer, let's see what Murray of Stella can tell us about life in New Zealand. Hello again, once more from around the world in 20 minutes. This time I'm joined by Murray Lea from New Zealand, from Stella in New Zealand. Murray, thanks for joining us.
Greetings, Ianus, from the southern hemisphere. Very winter here, hence my ensemble. Gotta stay warm.
Yeah, here I am sweating out here in the summer in Spain, and you having a whole time. Yeah, you're a damn long way away in New Zealand. You guys, like, I get this idea of remoteness when I think of New Zealand. Remote in terms of like sort of wilderness, but also you're just so far away. You've almost kind of fallen off the bottom of the earth down there. But you have internet and stuff like that down there, yes?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about falling off the planet, Dave, but yeah, we are far away, below Australia. Not far away from the Southern Pole. So we are very much a South Pacific nation and a very small country at that, for sure.
Do you feel remote? I mean, do you feel like sort of isolated and insular within each other, or is it just like my impression from the outside in a sense?
I'm not so sure about feeling far away, but certainly when it comes to logistics or going on holiday somewhere, when you're booking flights or looking at ship transits, it's really reinforced how far away we are. Yeah, but if it goes both ways, sometimes it's good to be far away, right? Like if you, let's say, for example, the Red Sea, or no offence, I hope I'm not causing any offence, but what's going on in Ukraine, it's quite good to be far away. We feel safe and secure in that way. But I guess when going on holiday or commercially, if you're in logistics, the tyranny of distance can catch you up, and it becomes very expensive just to get cargo here or into markets. So it goes both ways.
I guess so, yeah. And do you feel like, so the Kiwis, I mean, like, so you New Zealanders, you feel like you're closer because of that? Because, I mean, like, so if we can just like sort of drive over to France or whatever, or well, who would drive to France, I suppose? But anyway, like, we can just go in fairly easy. I mean, you're relatively close to Australia, but I mean, do you feel like the New Zealanders are such a bit of
Yes.
a united bunch of people, you'd say?
Yeah, I think so. I'm unsure. Hard to compare, like if I was Spanish, how that might feel versus, say, being a New Zealander and how that might feel. But I guess because we're so far away, because there are so few of us, and we have a unique culture here with Māori, and I suppose many of you are aware of the haka and what have you. We do feel very emotional about that. It's very close to us, and I feel that type cultural aspect is doing nothing but growing in the modern day New Zealand, making us that much more independent, and we are who we are. We border no other country. We're not landlocked. We're two main islands, as I say, in the South Pacific. So very unique in that respect. Our history doesn't go far back. I look on TV and see
Started with Cook, of course.
Shake my head and think, wow, history goes.
Your history started with Cook, of course, didn't it, Murray?
I did, Hannah.
Your history started with Cook, didn't it? Yes.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Except the Maori. What about Australia? That's very close to you. Sometimes from afar, we kind of like to bunch it together as like sort of Australasia or Oceania or whatever. Is there a good relationship with Australia, you'd say? There's like rivalry? I mean, you're much better at them at rugby, of course, but apart from that, I mean, how's it going?
We're better at many things, Dave. We're better at many things in Australia. Look, there is I think there's good camaraderie with the Australians, and I'd like to think they think that of us. Of course, we go back a long way with the Aussies, the Anzacs, for example, and we we represented one another a lot during the wars. We talk similarly, we have similar slang, and we have a similar background of colonies from England coming out. So there's a lot of similarity. Australia, of course, is that much bigger. They've got a population 5 times our size. Their economy would be every bit that much bigger, probably approaching 6 or 7 times bigger than us. So they're very much our biggest cousin or closest, largest cousin. And they're our second largest trade lane or trading partner. And so Aussies and New Zealanders will definitely have a kinship. If we're travelling on many of the SCN conferences, we end up being with one another because of that camaraderie, I guess, and similarity.
Okay.
But we have each other on regularly, and sporting events, absolutely, it's fiercely contested. Have to say, unfortunately, it's a little one-sided these days, but we give it a...
Okay, right. And how's the economy going in general? You mentioned like sort of trading with Australia. That's the second biggest. The biggest being, of course, China in that case. Your economy is like sort of it's logistics. Like you're mainly talking about movements down now from many years ago. I'm guessing from Europe, but now all from the Far East into New East, mainly.
Yes.
China.
New Zealand, I won't delve into this too deeply, but we had a very strong relationship with England many years ago. When England joined the EEC, we got kicked out, and so we lost that partnership, and then we had to develop new markets, and it put New Zealand back quite a way. It hurt us quite a lot. So since then, we've developed strong markets in Asia. As you've just touched on, China dominates both our import market as well as our export market. Australia is our second largest trading partner, and then there's quite a drop-off thereafter with the European market and the American market, way above everybody else. Asia in general dominated by China. New Zealand...
Is that changing at all? Are you noticing any like sort of movement away from China to like sort of Vietnam and shifting around Asia, or is it still just such a blast from China, you would say, at the moment?
Good question. We are seeing a migration of factory source. Predominantly, we're experiencing movement from China to India. We see India as an emerging market for New Zealand. We've even just put up a special page on our website promoting our relationship with the SCN partner Dane, which we're looking to build further volumes in that sector. With China, for example, if I just flip back there, New Zealand has lost much manufacturing capability. We are predominantly an importing country of everything that you could possibly think of. We have very little manufacturing left in New Zealand, so imports very strong. Yes. I think it's not unusual, and our export market is very strong, but it's seasonal and it's dominated by New Zealand being considered a food producer. So we have large quantities of meats, seafood, fresh produce, all that sort of carry on being exported out. So consequently, spring, summer is our peak season, and we see quite an imbalance of equipment in that time, where we have an insatiable demand for reefer containers, and ship lines are having to go to great cost to relocate the equipment to New Zealand. So hence, at different times of the year, we'll take advantage of NORs, non-operating reefers, because we get special discounts on those to bring them into the country to take advantage of it. And that's predominantly going to Asia and Europe, USA markets. Australia is still a big buyer, but not as much for our exports.
Those exports, do they involve freight forwarders as well, or are they mainly trading companies in the shipping lines, mainly doing the... Because I guess you're talking about meats, markets, and food you mentioned, and dairy products.
Yes.
And the freight forwarders don't get much of a look in there. That's mainly like sort of shipping lines directly with producers and whatever. What's the situation using it? Do you get involved in any exports of that sort of nature, or not particularly?
You're quite right, David. The ship lines dominate that market. Don't get me wrong, there are some freight forwarders who do play in it. I'm talking 3, possibly 4. It's dominated by our friends at Maersk. New Zealand being such a small country, I mention that because we are actually a top 10 customer worldwide or globally for Maersk because of our exports. Maersk dominate the reefer market here in terms of exports. They've done a partnership because they sign up every 10 years with a brand here called Kotahi. And it's very regulated, very policed, both in a logistics sense because of the infrastructure involved in the deal with Maersk, but also in a sense that it's so important to New Zealand. The government gets involved with through biosecurity and MPI to make sure that the food quality that is exported is at a higher standard to promote the New Zealand produce. And because of that regulation, a freight forwarder like ourselves, we don't get a look in. It's very controlled. It's very controlled.
Yeah, I know that's fairly common with other places as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's unfortunate you can't offset this as well, because as a freight forwarder, that means you are pretty much, I don't know, 90% inbound cargo in that case. And
Yes, that is correct. Don't get me wrong. Again, we do exports of reefer containers, and we do handle frozens coming in. But in terms of our overall volume, it's actually a small part of what we do. For example, we bring frozen coffee in from Australia, so that comes in reefers. We deliver it straight to a frozen or chiller storage environment, goes into there, and then is picked from there out to customers. So we can play in that space, but we're not a major player in that environment. We don't hold any infrastructure ourselves. We're more general dry good orientated.
tell me a bit about Stella. I mean, like, so how many of you guys are there? There's about a dozen people, are you in Stella?
So I'm a customs broker from background. I started Stella in the year 2002. I started off by myself, offering purely customs clearance work. And typically as things go, very quickly thereafter, customers started asking, hey, can you handle our freight for us as well? So we became a freight forwarder quite quickly, and staffing numbers grew from just myself to around the 7 or 8 mark. And then in 2008, our still biggest customer to this day, a multinational doing coffee and tea beverage, asked us to be their 3PL. And at the beginning, I didn't really want to get into warehousing. I'm, as I say, I'm a customs broker and learnt freight forwarding. But we did, and in hindsight, that served the business very well. So if we cut to modern day, Stella is a fully functioning 3PL operation. We have a 2,500 square metre warehouse located in Auckland, near Auckland Airport. And we have a 1,000 square metre warehouse based in Christchurch, which is the largest city in the South Island. We feel that this gives us coverage of the whole of New Zealand, and we have customers who carry stock or have stock holdings in both islands, and we distribute out from both those DCs. So Stella today is a business of 25 employees. We have a turnover of around 18 to 20 million New Zealand dollars. Our predominant customer base is inbound sea freight. In terms of FCLs, we deal with more FCL shipments than we do LCL, but both feature very strongly. Air freight is ever present, of course, but similar to what we touched on before, David, New Zealand being so far away, air freight is very expensive, and the New Zealand market tends to go to sea freight. I think the New Zealand market, over 90% of all our imports come in sea freight versus air freight. Yeah, that's a snapshot of Stella. That's how we operate.
I mean, you say air freight's very expensive, and ocean freight as well is like sort of getting so expensive in other parts of the world as well, mainly affected by the Red Sea situation.
Yes.
How's that affected you? Because I mean, of course,
it's affected us.
if the shipping lines can get so much more revenue from different other shipping routes as well, why go to New Zealand? Are you noticing cutting back of volumes and service, or not particularly yet?
Yes, the Red Sea event didn't start off affecting us greatly, but it certainly affected us. The impact has been significant. The reason being is transits. So again, New Zealand's so far away. So we're looking at that pre-COVID, in the good old days, a good transit might be, say, 40, 44 days, Europe to New Zealand. Now we're looking at 70 plus days. And the reason being is the vessels, of course, can't transit through the Suez Canal. They've been routed around the Cape of Good Hope. And then the vessels tend to come into Southeast Asia, so your Port Klangs, your Tianjin Palapasas, your Singapores, which are heavily congested transshipment ports. So we're seeing anywhere between 2 to 5 week delays transiting through that area. So that's pushing our transits out 70 plus days. The equipment shortage that we're experiencing, like I'm under the impression that your big trade lanes, your China's to Europe, your China's to US, your China's to South America, they're going very strong, and we've seen, well, they're experiencing rate increases. So again, my understanding is that those markets were anywhere between a low of 5,000 USD, 10, possibly going a bit higher now. The New Zealand market is not that long ago, I'm talking a month and a half ago, was sitting around 1,000 USD for a 20 to around 1,800 for a 40. So very, very low. And now to stay relevant to the rest of the world, I talk to my customers saying that New Zealand is in conflict with the rest of the world, and that New Zealand's in a recession. We're really struggling to recover from the highs of COVID. We've had a change in government, and the New Zealand economy is in recession. So the New Zealand importer is looking for lowest possible cost. But because of pressures experienced elsewhere in the globe, our ocean freights have now trebled. Still low, I think, by global standards, but very unwanted by the New Zealand importer because of the compressed domestic environment. So we're affected by what's happening as a consequence to the rest of the world. And definitely we're having to fight for equipment. And we're seeing price increases to stay relevant. I mean, why would a ship line give us a container for $2,000 when they could give a European forwarder a container for $10,000, right? So by default, our pricing is lifting. And the New Zealand business environment is depressed at the moment. It's very tight. Volumes are down, and it makes it that much difficult.
So how do you see these things developing afterwards? I mean, like, so where do you see in, so maybe 5-10 years time? I mean, okay, the economy will like to have its turns and swings and whatever, and it'll, I'm sure, get out of it somehow. But I mean, as a freight forwarder, you see things moving forward on that level?
Well, I think New Zealand, let's face it, New Zealand's never going to be a player in the global markets, right? I think the New Zealand volume is less than 1% of the global logistic environment. So we're forever going to be a small player.
But you don't need to be like the big player. I mean, we mentioned this like before. I mean, yeah, sure. New Zealand hasn't got like massive volumes, but also Mozambique hasn't got it. Bolivia hasn't. There's so many countries around the world which haven't got these massive volumes, but there's still merchandise flowing in and out, and there's still inherently a need for professionals like yourself, like some freight forwarders, to be moving merchandise around. Would you not say?
Yes.
Yeah? Let's not
don't get me wrong. I don't think New Zealand's going to disappear off the map. It's going to be okay. But look, I think it's been forecast that the New Zealand economy will turn perhaps the end of 24, but I think I'm putting my bets on second quarter 2025. I think, as I said, we've got a new government in place. They're definitely shaking the tree and making changes to turn us around, and then we'll be all gangbusters again. The world will be a beautiful place. I think long term, we're always going to be an importing country predominantly. For life of me, I can't see us ever having meaningful manufacturing again. I think that's the modern environment that we have to live with, and it's the way it is. Even if we wanted to have manufacture here, we just don't have the scale and the ability to compete with these much larger countries. So I think New Zealand is New Zealand. And I think what happens overseas affects us, like when the Chinese economy starts to lift and become strong again, so will we by default. I think when the Australian economy, or ditto Australia, ditto USA, we seem very reliant on what's happening in other economies and how they will affect us. And yet at the moment we've taken a dip, but we'll get through that and we'll bounce back.
Good. What about sustainability? Environmentally, my image of New Zealand is like you're very environmentally conscious or whatever. How much of that has actually moved over to interests in logistics or whatever? Or are you like the rest of the world, still wondering what to do and think it's a nice concept but not really managing to get your head around it?
Probably the latter, to show you how prominent that sort of logic is in the New Zealand market is have yet to be spoken to by a customer asking me about sustainability, what Stella's doing about it, and what our reporting capability is on, for example, CO2 emissions. I'm very aware, particularly thanks to the last SCN conference, how we are behind. What I got the impression we were very behind, particularly Europe, in terms of what's going on there. I'm sure the New Zealand market will have to change, and I think that will be driven predominantly by our corporates. For example, our largest customer I've touched on already is a global player, and they've yet to even speak to me about their expectations, and they definitely operate in Europe, etc. So I'm on kind of standby for that. But look, in the New Zealand market, because I think we're far away, because I think we're so few people, because I think we have because there's few of us, we have such beautiful environment that's not touched. It's not in our radar that it's a serious problem. It's not till we travel overseas and we see all the people and all the infrastructure that goes in with these large populations that you go, oh my gosh, we are small. So I think for those reasons, it's not a big deal in New Zealand yet. It's yet to come to us. I'm sure it will, but no, it's not much spoken of. Yes, in the media, yes, in government concerns, they speak about it, but it hasn't trickled down to commerce and logistics. No expectations on us as yet. No reporting to be done, but I'm sure it's coming.
Yeah, sure it is. I mean, reporting requirements are starting to come in certain places, but they're not like number one on the agenda most of the places. So I think it's quite important with these issues that we have a bit of an interest and start looking into these things, because they certainly are coming. But I don't think you need to feel guilty or whatever about the situation there, because as I say, I think that's pretty much where most forwarders are, as in starting to look into these issues and taking on from there. I know it's all to come. But generally speaking, I mean, you mentioned the recession in New Zealand and like you're a long way away, but you guys seem to be happy people, yeah? Would you not say? I mean, like I don't know if it's like just the gung-ho spirit of you guys or whatever, but I mean, are you happy? Are you happy, Murray? I mean, give me the figure between 1 to 10 of your happiness level.
Good question. Well, for one, I'm a very proud New Zealander, and I love our country, and I love what it offers. I think that we have a very good lifestyle, even living in Auckland. It's New Zealand's largest city, and I often say it's especially on my travels with SCN conferences, etc. I often think Auckland is a big city that's not. So we're 1.5 million people.
How big is the city of Auckland? What sort of population are we talking about here?
I don't know in terms of geographically. I think it's surprisingly up there. We're very spread out. We actually have 2 harbours, and back in the day, I'm going back 150 years, the Māori could pull their canoes from one side of New Zealand to the other. That's how narrow the land becomes between the 2 harbours. I mention that because Auckland's right smack in the middle of those 2 harbours, the Manukau and the Waitemata, and we're very lucky in terms of beaches, water. You can drive not far and be in a nice area. So I think that keeps us happy. But I've kind of lost my way here now. I might have to stop recording there, Dave. What were they talking about?
We can edit that. It's okay. But you're smiling, so why edit? I would say, yeah. But you were going to give me your number.
Happiness. That's right.
And
Yeah.
justify yourself,
Sorry.
I think. Yes.
I'll pick up on it. So I think the environment suits us well, and we live a good life. But being in a recession commercially, and I'm a businessman, I own a business. Of course, times aren't exactly great right now. It's winter. Us Kiwis, we're not so good in winter. We're used to the sun. We've got beaches, warm water. That's the kind of stuff that we thrive on. So right now, I'd have to give myself probably a lowly 7.5 in life. And looking forward to getting back to that 10 come spring, come summer, and come the economy lifts up.
That sounds great. It sounds good that you are like not like a fixed one number 8 or whatever. You're a very seasonally adjusted figure, riding the highs
Yeah,
and the lows as well in that case, and yeah.
very much so. I'm not a winter person. I do not like the cold. I like the heat. I can be wrapped up here.
Great. Okay. And what about the rest of the world? Where else in the world would you like to hear about? So we can try to find somebody else to share their knowledge with us. Where should around the world be going to next?
Well, I'd love to hear from Panama. I'm heading there obviously real soon, and
Okay.
that would be fantastic to meet and hear from them and how things are. Really look forward to that. And second to Panama, probably South America.
Okay. Right.
It's of interest. It's on my radar. What's going on, South America?
Good. Good. Well, we'll try to get some conversations going there in that case. So great, Murray. It's been fantastic speaking to you. Thanks a lot for joining us and telling us a little bit more about Stella, New Zealand in general, and yourself. And we'll see you in Panama.
Thanks, SCN. Really appreciate this environment. Love your support. And yeah, I love working with all of you. Look forward to seeing you in Panama.
Great stuff. Thank you, and speak to you soon then.
All right.
Bye for now.
See ya.
Bye.